how do you determine if you have an uncommon Mustang? That is to say, a Mustang, when compared to other Mustangs of the same year, is uncommon or rare. Well, first, let's talk about the fact that Ford was mass producing Mustangs from the inception, and 1967 was no different. In fact, in 1967, Ford built 474,121 Mustangs. That's a lot of Mustangs. And the fact is, most of them are not uncommon when compared one to another. And that's okay. But how do you determine if your Mustang is uncommon? Well, the way to do that is to look at it in 3 different categories and see how your Mustang falls in those 3 different categories, and then the relationship of one category to the other. And that'll tell you. Now, what are these categories? Well, the first category, it's kind of a no-brainer. What model or what body style do you have? Do you have a coupe? Do you have a convertible? Or do you have a fastback? Category 1. Second category is what color did your car come from the factory? And the third category is what options came in your car from the factory? Now, your answers to those 3 different categories will tell you whether you have a common or uncommon Mustang. Now, behind me, we have a very uncommon, very rare Mustang. Now, what makes it uncommon? What makes it rare? Let's take it through the 3 categories. First category, what body style is it? It's a fastback. Okay, let's talk about that. It's a fastback, and only 15% of total production are fastbacks. It's according to Kevin Marty, Mustang by the Numbers, right here. It's a documented fact. So what does that mean? Well, that means 15 out of 100 were fastbacks. That's category 1. Category 2, what color did it come as? Well, it's springtime yellow. How many fastbacks were springtime yellow in 1967? Again, in Kevin Marty's book, we can determine that 4,155 Mustangs were fastbacks springtime yellow in 1967. Now that's only 1%, or actually slightly less than 1% of total production. So 1 in 100 was a springtime yellow fastback in 1967. It's pretty uncommon. Okay, third category, options. The 2 options I want to talk about as it relates to this specific car are, 1, the S-code 390 option, and the second option, which is really an option package, is the GT Performance Group. Okay, so according to Kevin Marty's book, one more time, we look at the numbers, and Kevin Marty documents that only 2%, or only 2 out of 100 Mustangs would be a S-code 390 fastback. Pretty rare. Now, when you add the GT package, what happens? Well, now you drop down to the 1% population. That would be a fastback, S-code, 4-speed with the GT package. Now, let's go back to color. Springtime yellow's how this car came from the factory, but it also came with another very rare option. And what is that option? You look at the Kevin Marty report, you'll find out that this car is one of only 87 that came from the factory. One of 87 out of 474,121 that came with a painted gray rear panel. Now that's insanely rare. So there's no question that this is a very uncommon, very rare Mustang. And we found that out by just evaluating it through 3 different categories. You can do that with your Mustang. Now, in a minute here, we're going to actually go take this Mustang on a test drive and learn about some other attributes that I think that make this car very, very special. Well, one of the options I mentioned that this car has, and that's the 390 S-code. Let's take a look at this engine bay. You're looking at 390 cubic inches. Now, this is the first ever big block shoehorned into a Mustang. Just a great looking motor. This is substantially how it would have looked from the factory. The only obvious deviation is the aluminum intake manifold, but other than that, it's a pretty stock presentation. Well, let's start it up and listen to it run. That's very smooth. Let's go listen to the exhaust note. That's a great exhaust note. Let's go drive this thing. I love the deluxe brushed aluminum accents that are in the interior of the 67 Mustang. They really are stunning to look at. They just flow together so well. The entire design of the dash of the 67 Mustang has got to be one of the best ones. I call it a Hall of Fame design, and you know, I use that phrase for various cars that have various design elements that are uniquely beautiful and stylistic for the time and timeless, in fact, and this car absolutely is one of those. And I think most people agree with me. Well, here we go. We're almost out of the neighborhood, and it's another beautiful day here in Texas, and we're taking this 1967 S-code GT out for a ride. You know, you can always tell when you're in a big block Mustang, especially if it's tight like this one. Just has that muscular feel to it. I like them all. I like small blocks and big blocks, but there is a difference in the two. I mentioned earlier that this car is very rare as built, very uncommon, and that there were also other attributes that made it very uncommon, and that's the condition in which it came through life 50 years later. In particular, the floors, the undercarriage of this car, they're just amazing. Take time to look at those pictures and you'll be impressed. I've seen very, very few like it, 1 in 1,000. Original red oxide primer, original chalk marks on various components. Just super impressive. You never see that, and it's a testimony to the life that this car's lived and where it was from. It's an Arizona car, which is very, very impressive. Very impressive. That's the 390 GT. It's a nice performing car. Back in the day, it certainly would have been considered plenty peppy. That's a lot of fun. You know, there's a reason why the 67 is probably the most popular year in Mustangs, and there's just a lot of things that people can relate to, but I think the fact that they were really the first big block Mustang is really what got the attention. And then of course Shelby built its platform, or this was the platform for the Shelby, and that's what really sort of gave the Mustang respect in the performance world. And I get it. You know, it's a beautiful body style, it's got adequate performance, and it has a cult-like following. People all over the world love this particular car, and there's a lot to like. It's the interior, the exterior, the design elements. It's a very cool machine. Well, that's the test drive. Thanks for coming along, and come again when you can.